Hello. So today we're talking about the Be Aware and Share campaign in your neighborhoods. And today we're having a conversation with Chief of Wake Park Police, Dave Bentrud. And so will you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been in law enforcement in Stearns County area here now for going on 25 years. I spent 16 years with St. Cloud Police Department in the past 10 years as chief here in Wade Park. I'm married. I've got 4 kids, and it's been a great career. I love what I do.
So can you tell us a little bit about how this all got started in our neighborhoods?
Yeah, the whole issue of sex trafficking in this area really started for us about, 5, 6 years ago. We had a investigation where we found out that a 14-year-old girl from the Twin Cities was being trafficked out of a local motel room in town. And I that obviously got my attention because I was like, I kind of took it personal, and not in my town, not in my city. We got to deal with something like this, and we started to kind of look at, what's the scope of this? Is this just kind of an anomaly, or is this a real issue? And so we, at that time, there was a lot of ads for escorts and things and some of the social media sites. So we set up a fake ad and we put a phone number, and within 24 hours, we had 75 or 80 phone calls to that phone. And that told us that the demand was really high, and that we might have a real problem. And so we started doing a series of investigations, what we call John details, and over the last several years, kind of working on a part-time basis with our investigators. We've made over 200 arrests of individuals who were buying sex. We've sent 6 or 7 people to prison for rather long sentences for trafficking women. And so over the last 5 or 6 years, excuse me, we've identified that this is a serious issue. Why St. Cloud? I think what we found is that for a long time, a lot of the girls that were working in prostitution down in the Twin Cities were being brought up to St. Cloud. It was not an area that we were really paying attention to it. And so I'm speaking of law enforcement. And so it became a pretty lucrative area. And once we started realizing what was happening, because oftentimes this is a crime that occurs it's hidden. It's not readily obvious to people, within their communities or their neighborhoods. And so this was a market, if you will, and it became a pretty popular one. And we've tracked women from the Twin Cities Metro to St. Cloud to Fargo Moorhead out to the oil fields, and and again, it was one of those things that it was just, wow, we've got a significant issue. We need to do something about it. And I'm very excited now. We've been able to secure a state grant that will allow us to assign 2 officers full-time to trafficking investigations. And we noticed a couple of things initially, 2 big gaps. One is we needed to get law enforcement full-time on investigating this. We've accomplished that. The other gap that we have is a safe house for women. We really, I can't tell you how important it is for us to establish a place that we can bring women who are being trafficked, so that because we can't just take whatever information they have and just let them go back out on the street, because they're going to end up back with their pimp or whatever. And so that victim support, victim service, victim advocacy is kind of the next gap that we need to close. And I'm very happy to be serving on the Terebinth board and doing what I can to help the cause, because it's significant. You wouldn't think that this would be something in like central Minnesota, kind of rural America, if you will. You think about this being a big city issue, but it's a big problem, and we need to do some things to correct it, and we're doing those things.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, Dave, can you tell us a little bit about what we can be watching for, signs in our neighborhoods and in our homes?
Yes, I think that we've seen a couple of things that come to mind. There's oftentimes a lot of physical abuse when there's a young person, whether they're a juvenile or a young adult. There's occasionally signs of physical violence, bruising. The pimp is physically abusive to the women. We're seeing a high correlation between chronic runaway and truancy issues, and as maybe a lead into getting involved in trafficking. We've seen even girls that are truly victims, flashing a lot of cash and maybe even trying to recruit other people, other girls into the lifestyle, which is very concerning. We've seen tattoos where there's a kind of a branding thing. You might see the name of their pimp on their chest, or a barcode, or dollar signs, tattoos. That's an indication of that trafficking could be involved. So any changes within a family, if all of a sudden you kind of knew who your kids' friends were and now you don't. There's a lot of engagement with traffickers and victims of prostitution through the internet. There's a lot of recruiting through the internet. So being kind of tech savvy and understanding social media and what kids are doing is really, really important. When you see older guys, older boyfriends, that's a red flag. And just changes in behavior and those types of things. Again, as far as the community is concerned, initially for us, most of the activity kind of showed up in local motels. They would rent, girls would rent rooms, and that's where a lot of the activity was taking place. We've put some pressure on the hotels just through our enforcement efforts. So some of that activity now is being pushed out to homes, residents, houses, apartments. And so if you see an address that maybe has a lot of short-term traffic, again, older men, younger girls, that kind of stuff, again, those can be indicators that there's some potentially dangerous, harmful things taking place. And it's kind of one of those things where kind of be aware and share. If you see something, say something.
Okay.
And encouraging individuals when they see those things to contact law enforcement.
Okay.
It won't be too long that we're going to have a phone number that people will be able to call directly to our sex trafficking investigators with those kind of tips. That kind of information is going to be really helpful for us.
Okay. So then, what can we be doing to stop sex trafficking in our neighborhoods and in our homes?
Well, I think that it's important for parents, I would say, to become familiar with the issues, because I've seen a number of videos and stories of girls, and it's mostly girls. We're seeing some boys that are being prostituted as well, but predominantly women. And and this can impact just about any family, any socioeconomic situation.
Okay.
We've seen the proverbial cheerleader, literally a student that gets meets up with the wrong person and get brought into that lifestyle. So it can happen really to anybody. And I think for parents to be aware of the signs, be engaged in your kids' lives, be social media savvy, and strike that balance between trusting your kid and and being aware. Because it can really literally happen to any family.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think parents could talk to the school board and encourage education. I think a lot of the local schools are open now to having law enforcement and the prosecutors come in and talk to teachers about what to look for. But if that's not happening, to engage the school district, encourage that kind of awareness training for our kids. It could very well prevent them from getting involved.
Okay.
Otherwise, just paying attention to the neighborhood and changes that are taking place within the kids' lives as well as within your neighborhood.
And so we just want to make sure that you know that you can call, if you see or suspect anything, that you can call law enforcement or Terebinth Refuge for anything that looks suspicious for sex trafficking in your neighborhoods. And Dave, I just want to thank you so much for supporting this issue and helping to stop sex trafficking in our neighborhoods.
Yep.
And
in the meantime, if you think you've seen something or you have concerns about what we're talking about is actually happening, feel free to call Wake Park Police Department.
Okay.
And until we get our investigator number set up, we'll make sure that it gets taken care of or routed to the right agency, because like I said, right now this is a kind of multi-jurisdictional thing. So call Wake Park if you think you are seeing some of this occurring right now.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much,
Yep,
Dave.
thank you.
It was great having you.
Appreciate it.